Good afternoon. I'm Natalie Rivera. You can call me Nat. I'm Acme's newest addition to the team and our first ever manager of organizational communications. Since the role is so new, I wanted to make sure that we came together to understand what my role is, what exactly we mean by organizational communication, and the type of area or work you can expect from me to handle. As part of getting started in this role, I've created this presentation for you, the Acme leadership team and senior staff, so that you will best understand organizational communications, what it really is, and why it is important for the growth of the company. So we're going to start with the basics. Some of this you may already know, and I appreciate if you already do know it. I'm just building on that foundation of knowledge. If this is brand new for you, I also am available for additional questions. You have my email, and I'm one of the team, so you can reach out to me anytime. So first off, what is organizational communication? Well, as described by Matthew Koshman, the professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Boulder, Colorado, he says that it's a broad field that includes all forms of communication and allow organizations such as Acme to connect interpersonally, interdepartmentally, connect with clients, grow, adapt, and thrive. He specifically says we can talk about organizational communication as the communication that happens within organizations. That is all the communication activity that exists. So that covers, phone calls, meetings like the one we're having right now, teleconferencing, video conferencing, speeches, presentations, and so on. All of that falls under the umbrella of organizational communication because it's communication that's happening within an organization. But what is organizational communication really? Organizational communication can be viewed in two ways, according to Matthew Koshman, the same professor at the University of Boulder, Colorado, when he says that communication is often viewed as within an organization, and that's the informational view of communication. And so what he means by that is those telephone calls, those meetings that we have, where it's just the communications that's happening and Acme is the umbrella or the container that contains all those different types of communication. The second way to view organizational communication is that organizations actually are communication. There's no way to separate what is Acme from the communication that occurs within Acme. And this is considered the constitutive view of communication, and that communication actually shapes social reality. And when we think about that, that's actually pretty accurate because there's nothing that you can point to at Acme that is separate from the communication that goes on inside of Acme. So when we talk about what are the functions of organizational communication in a business, the first type of organizational communication, where it's a basket that we're filling with communication, or it's the vessel where communication is existing, you might think of things like profit, staff meetings, progress, success versus failure, employee recruitment, which are all communication. And I don't want to downplay that they aren't communication, but those aren't really the functions of organizational communication, because again, we need to think about how our organization, Acme, actually is communication. So when we talk about that, there's actually 4 different ways in which we can think about the functions of communications in a business, and they are inform employees about job functions, persuade clients and partners, motivate employees to make better decisions, and socialization. So if Acme is organizational communication, what that really means is, for the first bullet point, inform employees about job functions. What we're talking about here is job descriptions, feedback from peers, feedback from managers, company-wide targets, key performance indicators, etc. This is information that allows employees to understand what their job functions are, to perform their jobs, and to perform them well. The next bullet point of persuading clients and partners. This can include verbal communication with clients, setting up meetings, elevator pitches, learning opportunities, hitting the emotional connections to others, public relations, any sort of marketing, branding, that's another function of the business or organization. In this case, our organization is a business, so that's why I say that. But they aren't always businesses. But Acme is a business, so I will use those interchangeably moving forward. The third one, motivate employees to make better decisions. It isn't just about like a paycheck, it's about all the ways that we motivate employees to make better decisions, all the types of communication. So maybe the employee handbook, or being able to be informed on what will help them get the next promotion or get the next opportunity, what staying late after work might mean for them, or why they might want to choose color A over color B for a product, and what that will mean for the business and for them. The last one, socialization. So if the organization is communication, then socialization is imperative. We have all had opportunities in our lives where we, felt like we were in the group, or we felt like we were out of the group, or maybe we wanted to be more involved in the group. And time and time again, studies have shown that if people really feel like they are part of something, they are that much more committed to the success of that. So socialization, from knowing Ted's birthday and having cakes and celebrations for that, to just feeling like you're part of the team and acknowledged and not just a number, is really imperative. Socialization can also look different ways depending on the organization. So there's the type of organizations or businesses that have a very chain of command, vertical command structure, where, the vice president reports to the president, and underneath the vice president is the general manager, and so on down the line. And then there are other organizations that have more of a flat or horizontal chain of command and are more open. Similarly, you can think of offices that are very cubicle, or some offices, especially right now in the COVID-19 pandemic, are completely remote and separated. Or you have the completely open floor plans of some tech companies. And those all lead to different socialization, different social norms, different cultures. And that's a function of organizational communication in a business, is how are all of these functions molding and shaping what that organization is. So as part of that, we need to talk about transparency, because it really doesn't matter what everything is if we can't figure out or see what everything is. Boundless describes being transparent as operating in such a way that an organization's actions are visible to outsiders. So coming into Acme, I would expect to see a level of transparency, to be able to very easily see what the company's values are, to see what the social norms of the organization are, to see the structure, like I was talking about, the more horizontal or vertical structure. Do we have a chain of command, or do we have more of a flat reporting structure? And all of these things need to be very transparent, not just to like new employees coming in like me, but they need to be transparent to outside customers, to outside entities, especially our enemies. Enemies is maybe a strong word, but if we had activists that were protesting against us, or if we had people that are really questioning our motives or our integrity, then maybe we would want to go above and beyond, and transparency would be releasing our pay structure for our employees. Maybe it would be releasing our contract negotiation criteria, or maybe it would be releasing the environmental reports for the latest widget that we made, to show that we are looking at whether or not we're having a negative impact on the soil, and sharing that with the activists and working alongside them. You wouldn't want to seem like you're hiding information, or that you're being like you're hiding anything, because then you're not really building a culture that that is true, and everything that is, you just don't want to be two-faced. So we wouldn't want other people to perceive Acme as one thing and then it to be an entirely different thing. So as you can see in the cartoon, it's kind of funny because the person is literally transparent and you can't see what they're doing, and we don't want to be the invisible man. What we actually want to be is very transparent and all of our actions visible. So that's actually the opposite of the transparency policy that we would want to have at Acme. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is targeting messaging strategies and corporate branding. So the Economist Group in 2013 defined marketing as shaping who you are, like what will make your offering meaningful and different from your competition, and using it to guide what we say and deliver our distinctive values to our buy-in partners. But communications, meanwhile, is crafting the message that you would like to be received and sending them out to both internal and external audiences. So targeting messaging strategies are marketing materials and kind of defining what we want to present to the public. And corporate branding is our communication and our messages, our very specific messages that we want to be sent out. And so they're both connected and they have to work together, and that's why you see the Venn diagram there. So how can organizational communications be used to shape Acme Widgets brand? If the organization, as we've covered, and communication are the same thing, if they are one and the same, we can't have one without the other, then the entire company becomes a vehicle to shape your brand. So a really good example of this, probably the strongest example that anybody uses when they talk about branding and organizational communication, is Disney. So everything that you think about with Disney, from their waffle irons that they sell at Target, to the Disney theme parks, to the Disney movies, to the ringtone that you download on your phone, everything is tied into that brand. It's going to be wholesome. It's going to be family friendly. It's going to be something that has a high value. You can expect that it would have been produced by Disney, that it wouldn't have been, they're very careful about selling their rights to anybody. So it's coming directly from Disney. It's going to be of a high quality. You're going to expect that if it's a character being presented to you, that character is always going to be in character and on brand, and is not going to, do something disrespectful or curse in front of your child. And so that's how organizational communication can be used to shape Acme Widgets brand, where everything is aligned from every level of the organization. When somebody is getting an email from us, they're getting it on letterhead. When they're getting our product, they're getting it in our packaging. They know what they're going to get. It's not going to be potentially, a less quality brand. When they're talking to one of us, they're getting that same messaging, those same values emoted from us. So that's how organizational communication can be used to shape Acme Widgets brand. I'll go into more specifics on the next slide. So specifically communicating our brand, Erin gives us, in 2016, gave us 12 steps. I have them listed there. This is kind of a wordy slide, so I also will email out this whole slideshow to all of you so that you don't have to like jot all these down. I know that it is quite a few words on this slideshow. But the first one is a brand audit. So what we would do is go through and say, is on every level Acme being represented? Is every memo with our letterhead? Is the wording that I use for one of our widgets the same as somebody else who's talking about that widget, or are they saying the word toggle? And so we would have to assess where we're at. The first step of anything is to see where you're at. The second step will be to align our brand from the inside out, just like I was talking about with Disney as the example. We need to make sure that everything at every step is the same way, is what we want to be presenting to everyone. The third is to start from the top. So it's kind of a trickle down effect. We would want to start with the big heavy hitters, with the highest levels of our leadership, which is you all. And then from there, it goes down to every level of the organization. So then we would make a plan to integrate, and you have to maintain consistency. So it's not like something that's going to change every single week, or, our customer, if they don't talk to us from now until next January, they shouldn't expect a brand overhaul in that time frame. They should expect the Acme widgets they're getting now are the same that they're going to get in January. The next is we're going to give employees the right tools so that they have everything to explain it at every level of the organization and to use it. So, every character that's at a Disney park knows their role, knows how to emote the Disney brand, even if they're just selling pretzels, mouse-shaped pretzels by the side of Main Street in Disneyland. They understand what the brand is that they're emoting and how they participate in that. And so we have to give our employees what is Acme and give them the right tools to emote that to our customers, to each other, and through the products. And then the sixth one is get them excited. I've worked at organizations that did not get me excited. They were like, memorize these values. The regional operations manager is coming next week. You got to be able to explain it. And I was like, great, cool. And I memorized them. But if you ask me now, now that I no longer work for those organizations, I can't tell you what those values really were. And that is an example of how the organization kind of failed to communicate to me how I was part of the brand and failed to get me excited about it. And we don't want to do that with Acme. And then 7 is to keep that momentum going. So we got to keep everyone going. The next one is hire the right people. This one can be hard to hear, but it's also like permission to accept that some people will not fit our brand. And I'm not talking about anything that would be illicit or illegal, but I'm talking about people that don't want to be part of the brand. So when people want to work at Disney World, but they don't want to wear mouse ears, they're not the right fit for Disney World. They might be a totally awesome, even theme park employee, but they wouldn't fit at Disney because they aren't wanting to be part of that culture, aren't wanting to be part of that brand. 9 would be reinforce the right behaviors, which can be competitions, it can be just acknowledgments, and kind of removing non-brand items from our organization. 10 would be lead by example. So if we want everyone else to do it, that would start with us as the board of directors and the most senior leadership of Acme. We would have to lead by example. Number 11 is do an annual checkup, just like when we started in step 1. We're going to keep checking up on that. And it's okay if there are some opportunities for improvement that we identify. I would expect that to happen during the annual checkup, where you say, okay, these are the things that we did great, but here's where we're still using the word toggle when we really mean widget for part 31117A. Okay, so that's an opportunity. And we should look at them as opportunities to improve, because we are an organization which is basically a living organism that is never going to be perfect. And as soon as we assume that we are perfect, then that's when we really let each other down and don't really continue to grow. as a team. And then 12, ongoing program. It's not a time box campaign, so we got to live it, breathe it. This goes on forever. This isn't like hey, for the next 4 months, we're going to talk about these values, we're going to talk about these pillars, and then let it go. No, this is Acme moving forward, where this is what the company's brand is, and we're going to make sure that everybody knows it, just like they know what the Nike brand means, what the NFL means. We're going to, in a similar way, be a very known entity, and when they're communicating with us again or receiving communication from us, they know what that means. They are able to recognize those values and those items as our brand. So what strategies can be used to build and or maintain Acme Widgets' reputation, which would be imperative for the brand, is, as Fox said in 2013, 1, understand what makes messages effective. 2, understand what makes messengers effective. So not just the message itself has to be effective, but what makes certain messengers effective. Is a vice president the most effective messenger, or do people really buy into it and believe it when it comes from a line worker on the assembly line of the widgets? 3 is to practice and repeat. So whatever works, the strategies that we find work, you practice those, you get better at them, and you repeat them. Again, we're not going to focus on our mistakes. We're not going to get bogged down in the negative. We're going to just practice and repeat and get better and improve and grow as an organization. Number 4, focus on your benefits, not your features. So our benefits are like what you would put on a flyer maybe for Acme. Your features would be what you would put on it. So, over 20 different varieties of widgets available, excellent customer service, etc. But we actually want to focus on our benefits. So the benefits would be, what does the customer benefit from working with us? Then 5, we would stick to the foundation that we built. So we're going to start with a strong foundation, and we're going to continue to build on that. Acme isn't brand new. We are starting with a strong foundation, but we're going to make sure that our branding and that our messaging and our communication is also on a similarly strong foundation. 6, we're going to nail the takeoff and the landing. So when you launch any sort of marketing or PR or communication strategies, you got to make sure that it's not muddled. There are some politicians that actually have a reputation for being kind of autofill, generic statements, and halfway through their paragraph they don't quite make sense, and then they're talking about something else, and they're talking about their kids' soccer match, and then they come back to their point, and then they say something that doesn't quite make sense. That would be an example of bad, right? We want to have a clear message, launch it appropriately, we want to stick to it, and then we want to stick that landing. So we communicated it how we wanted to communicate it, with the person we wanted to communicate it, in the place we wanted to communicate it, and we got it to the recipients and they understood it, that it was intended. And that's what nail the takeoff and landing is. Number 7, being on message doesn't mean being robotic. So again, we don't want to come off as fake or as false. And a lot of times when you're trying to be very accurate, you can come off as being very robotic. It's even seen in probably my presentation where I take pauses and, and I'm trying not to be robotic. I'm trying to engage with you, but there are times when you really focus on your communication, and then that leads you to overanalyze it and kind of do this meta mental assessment in your brain, and that can be detrimental, because then the person on the receiving end doesn't necessarily think you're being transparent, because you're not acting human, and we're all human, so let's be human together. So finally, why am I here? Why do we need that? So the 4 reasons that I wanted to explain of what I do for Acme is I make the obvious obvious. So I put the first obvious in quotation marks because a lot of us think we understand communication. We use communication. We're all speaking the same language. So we all think we understand how organizations communicate within itself and to the customers. But I'm here as a third party, coming in with fresh eyes to just say, hey, maybe we should have a standard way of replying to customer complaints, or and that's just an example. I haven't assessed that, but that's the opportunity that I have, is to say, hey, why do we do this a certain way? And maybe we've done it that way for 50 years, but that's not necessarily a good reason to keep doing something just because we have been doing it a certain way. The next reason is a role dedicated to branding and communicating the benefits to everyone at Acme. So I communicate our branding and our communication, and it's coming through one voice, which will help us in really aligning our branding and aligning our communications. And that way everyone can come to me as like a separate person rather than their supervisor of, is this on message? Is what I'm doing on message? And, they don't necessarily report to me. So I'm like a safe space to make sure that everyone's on brand and everyone's communicating in a healthy way and in a positive way to promote Acme's success. New perspectives always help. You want to go buy a wedding dress, or you aren't sure which car you should buy, or you are thinking about making a big decision. You grab your best friend and you take them, or you call your mother, or you call your dad, and you ask for that advice. Humans don't exist in a vacuum. They don't live on an island. And I am that fresh perspective that can help us improve our communication as an organization. And then the final reason, the organizational manager is always on your side. So, I don't have a horse in the race. I don't have a stake in what has been or what could be. So there are employees right now that have great ideas that want to bring those to the table, and they might be drowned out by the people that really want to stay to traditional values. And there's an opportunity for the best of both of those to blend together. And I am on your side and am here to protect Acme and to help the employees have an easier communication day and to communicate better with their peers and their boss. And I'm not a risk of firing somebody or writing someone up. I'm just here to help everyone improve on how they connect to each other, how they connect to clients, how they connect to the media, and improve all of our lives, because a high tide raises all ships. So I am on everyone's side, and that's why I'm here. This last 2 slides, I will just show them. They're just the sources that I use. So, as I cited verbally and both on the slides for you throughout, this is where I got all of my information. Again, I am happy to email out the entire slideshow for all of you. And then if you have any questions, please let me know. The next slide is, again, just 2 out of 2 of the sources. It's just part of the transparency. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm really excited to get started here. I'm on the 3rd floor, room 213, and I'm here to help you. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time, everybody. Have a great night.